Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to the Mixed Media Garden Boots. Um, we are recording this, so I'm just going to make sure that some people are muted because I can hear a few sounds here. Okay, all right. But if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. We're starting off with the drawing, and we're going to draw lightly. And so we have oh, you have an echo. Does anybody else have an echo? It might be that you have feedback from if you have me on two devices. That could be. I'm not sure. I know that's what happens to me. I use two devices when I'm recording, and when like what you see up here. Yeah, so maybe come back in and I'll let you back in. Maybe it just needs to be sort of, I don't know, next. I'm sorry, I can't be more. Oh, yeah, Karen says you can see Mary Ellen twice. So you might be checked in
Yeah,
twice.
I think yeah, maybe I was. I think it went away.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did see, I saw you leave, but then I saw you still on and I thought, oh. All right, good.
That's probably I was in there twice.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that figured out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to mute you and we're going to get started now. And we're going to start in the middle of our paper. So this should be watercolor paper. I'm going to go in a little bit closer. And for those that have never taken a class with me before, I kind of zoom in and out depending on what we're doing. But for now, I have the overall sort of picture of it. And what we're going to do first is we're actually going to do the boots first. So, oh, I have somebody coming in. And so we're going to start off with the boots. And welcome. Oh, was that Mary Ellen again? Okay. I don't know who just came on. Oh, Zoom user. Okay. All right. Very good. Sorry, Mary. Hi, Zoom user. I am going to mute you because we are recording. Okay, so the boots. So we're going to start off again in the middle. We want to make sure to leave room at the top for the fence. So this isn't the top of my paper completely because you can see that. Let me just fix this. There we go. You can see that there's more room at the top so that we can do the fence and then, the grasses above. But we're going to start off with a light shape of the boots. And so our first boot, and I'm going to draw darker so that you can see it on Zoom. Our first boot is slightly slanted at the top. So we're going to do a very basic shape at first. This is the long part of the boot. And because it's in perspective, the front part would appear wider. So this part, as you're coming down with your two lines, you're going to kind of go outward a little bit like this. And then you're going to make the front part of your shoe. And so you want to make sure that there's room so that you can also add the crease for your boot. I'm going to go a little bit closer now. So we have our crease. If you need your boot to be higher, you can do that. I'm going to make mine a little bit higher because we also have that top part that we're going to be drawing on anyway. The kind of decoration of these boots. I have hunter boots, so I actually used my hunter boots to draw this. Mine aren't yellow, but um, I was thinking like traditional rain boots, so that's why I made them yellow. You can make them any color, by the way. Oh, Patricia's coming on. Welcome, Patricia. I'm going to recopy in the chat the information for the two of you that just popped on. We're recording, so I've muted everyone, but it's great to see everybody. So we just started the left boot. We're also just adding the top part of the boot, and then we're also going to add the little kind of name tag here up top. Oops, sorry, I think that got I got a little too close to the camera. And the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to then add on at the bottom the cleats. And the way that I like to do it is I like to first add the shape, the general shape. So you can see that I'm kind of doing like a roundish, kind of a roundish lip on it. And then I'm going to make sure that I've done it light because then I'm just going to show this up close. We're going to make the teeth, right? So now we can go in and go like this. So let's do that. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see. And so basically that's going like this all the way across. And then you'll erase the part that is on the ground, or actually sort of missing from the ground. So what I mean is, right, these little square almost holes, right, the cleat part. And that's kind of an easy way to make the bottom of the shoe. We're going to do a few other things to this boot before we move on to the next one. And it's just some details here, like some crinkles and, going further up here on the left side, we have a crinkle here. And then right near it, we have sort of a detail that's on the boot. And for now, I'm just going to put this in pencil. Later on, we go back and we add this in brown pencil, but I'm just going to add it kind of lightly. This should go out to the side of the boot here. Erase that because that's a little bit suspicious and strange. And let me fix that. Okay, so this is sort of the wrinkle in the boot. I'm gonna make it a little straighter. And then I made sort of another lump kind of inward here. Like very slight, like a kind of an indent. You want to make it look like, the boots have been worn. And then I do the same on the other side, on the right side. And then I add, when I get to the top, a little bit of a indent before going back up. So that's also why I mentioned about, drawing lightly, because we go back and we recreate the details. So we're going to move to the next boot here. And we're going to start at the back of the boot on the ground here. And so we're going to leave a little bit of room in between the boot, but we're going to start with the heel. Just fix this. So starting with the heel, and then we're going to curve inward and then go up for sort of the neck of the boot. So it's going to look like this, general shape. Here's the back. This is the top of the boot. And that's gonna kind of come to a point at the top here. And then we're gonna go down till about here. And then we start to make the foot part like this, and then your toe part. It's going to kind of look like a sock. And then it meets right back with the back portion of the foot. Oops, sorry. I erased and moved my paper at the same time. Get some more light on the one corner here. Why it looks so dark. There we go. I had my other light in the on the left side kind of angled. Okay. And so the same thing here, we're going to start adding some details, being first one at the top here, where, our boot is kind of a 3/4 view. So we would see the front is actually on the right side. I think I'm going to make my boot just a little bit thicker too. At least up top. Now you can see that this line kind of curves downwards. So it's not a straight line. You can see that it's kind of like a frown, right? Like it goes downward. And then the same thing, we have the label here at the top, kind of does the same thing. And it's more toward the right because it's at the front of the boot, and the front of our boot is facing this way, right? We really see a lot of the side. And then we're going to make that same design that we made on the other boot. And again, I'm just going to do really light lines here because we're going to go back and do those with colored pencil. You can also see this boot should be slightly smaller than the one we have on the left. That's because it's sitting back a bit. If yours isn't, that's okay. It can be right up front with the other one. And now we're going to add the heel on. So just like we did before, except we need to add the heel. So we're going to add that heel shape. And then the overall shape for the bottom part, like we did before, we kind of have it meet up with the toe. And then I'm going to go in close so you can see. And then we do the teeth again. And then we erase in the middle. And then you probably have to kind of go back and fix, fix it a little bit. Because I know with me, mine erases more than what I expect. but that's okay. And then we add some wrinkles. We add a wrinkle here because with the boot, you know, when you put it on, there'd be a wrinkle here because of your leg going into the boot. Sometimes there'd be a little bit there'd be like one here, and then a crease right here. And one right here. You know, you can add more creases if you want, more wrinkles. But those would be sort of the general, kind of the general shape. Oh, Alina, we lost Alina, but she's back on. Yay. Okay. Um, okay. And our next part is going to be the fence. And then we actually start doing the watercolor. The rest of it, as we're going to start the watercolor, it's very loose. So we're going to be doing sort of overall shapes for the bottom of the grass, and we're going to be leaving white spaces for the leaves and stems. But we'll talk about that once we draw the fence. So I'm going to adjust my camera here. So I'm going to just kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So basically, after we draw the fence, we're going to kind of leave it in the air, right? We can see parts of the fence behind it. And then we're going to come down and start to paint the ground with green and brown. And we're going to have an overall greenish kind of splotches around and in the back. And then we're going to create flowers and leaves. So let's get started on the fence. Right, so let me just move my camera. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to start on the fence. And so if we look over here, away from all the greenery, we see that our fence posts, we've got two back here. We do have another one, but it's really kind of faded in the background, but we'll draw it. So let's start off first with this one since it's right up against our boot in the back. So we're just going to start with basically like the fence post shape, right? So maybe about right here. Okay, and that's the first fence post. And then we're going to move to the left. This is in my little make-believe garden here. My fence is not doing so well. It's a broken fence. So we've got one that's kind of chopped off here. And then we have sort of one back here, but it's probably just a piece of it because again, my husband needs to fix the fence. It's all his fault. So we have a piece of the fence showing behind this boot. My husband Chris would actually love to build a fence if he could, but we rent and we have like areas of our garden sort of fenced off with, you know, fence that you can buy from Home Depot, but he always wants to build something. It's so funny. Anything that I say I'm going to buy for our townhouse, he goes, wait, let me see if I can build it. I'm like, let's just get it from Amazon. So funny. So we have another part of the fence here. And in my drawing over here, my boot came out a little wider. So I wasn't able to see the fence more. So I'm going to draw, because my boot is a little bit thinner. I'm going to show a little more of my fence here. So you are welcome to do the same if you want, or if you wanted to, yeah, I would say do that. And then we have another piece of fence back here. So basically we're just kind of drawing boards right across. And we have another one that is actually facing sort of, we see the other part of the fence. We see two sides of this part of the fence post. I'd have to tell Chris after this that I was making fun of him because I was just about to say, "Oh, and look, there's two of these are facing the wrong direction." So, and so these posts are a little bit turned, and so we have some. Let me go in closer so you can see. So what I'm talking about is this one. You can see two sides. And this one, you can see two sides and a little bit of the top. So we have a rectangle at the top for that. And then we have our last two fence posts. One that's a little bit taller. And that's just kind of facing in front of us. And the same thing with this one. So notice with these, I have not finished the bottom portion of each one. As a matter of fact, I realized I did it with these, and I'm going to have you erase the bottom of each fence post because we wouldn't see the bottom. I don't know why I started drawing on here for these on the left. I think I was just thinking, okay, they end about here. So that's about what our fence would look like. And later on, we'll go back and, after painting, that's when we go back with our colored pencils and we add in all the details. Move up a little bit here. Okay, so you're probably wondering at this point, okay, so I mentioned about we're going to start with the dirt and the grass on the bottom. And so let me move my watercolors in here. So we're going to start with our brown. And I like to get that on the side of my plastic part and use that as a sort of like a palette. And so I take some of the brown and I put it here. And the reason is because I want to go lighter at first, and water is our lightener. So we're going to get our brown ready and we're going to get our green ready. So I use regular green and yellow combined because we're also going to be using, and if you have different kinds of green, like if you've got 3 or 4 different kinds of green, I just have basic, this is watercolor, Crayola. So I mix my own greens. So, and we're also going to have yellow, just plain yellow. That's going to be our first color that we put down in the grass. So we go from light to medium to dark with watercolor. So, and in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the grass. And so the yellow is peeking out underneath. So with watercolor, everything is layered, light layers upon each other. And so we're going to start off and we're going to do yellow all around here. And so we're going to act like, we've got like some of the grass, but we don't want to fill in all the spots. So what I'm thinking, or I guess what I'm saying is, here on the left, we're going to be making curved lines for sort of the tall grasses. So we're doing this all using our paint. But right now, we're laying down some of the yellow, and we're going to do that underneath the boots and probably up until we get to the fence posts. Now here on the right side of the boot, we're only going to do a little splotch of yellow to the right of the boot. Our next color is going to be the sort of the lime green, the yellow and green mixture. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in splotches of it on top of the yellow. So like maybe right here to the left, little splotch there. And if you noticed, I used some water to make it a little bit kind of lighter. And then we're going to kind of go on top of the yellow. And what I'm doing is just adding a little bit around as I'm going around the boot, the one on the left. So that now it kind of has a little bit of a greenish yellow kind of glow. And then we're going to do around the other boot, but staying on the left side. Hi, Mary Ellen.
Ah,
I'm glad we got back on.
yeah. Oh, geez.
Hey, at least there's not, I'm looking outside, I'm like, there's no storm, so that's good. But sometimes, sometimes when the internet, I feel like I've heard that when there's a lot of people using the internet, that's when we have like not outages, but like everyone's trying to be on it and people get kind of
Uh,
jumped off.
uh,
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I hear.
yeah,
So I'm
it's just,
I'm glad to see you were able to get back on. So we're going to kind of now get into at first um, our regular green. So we're going to go into using the point of our brush. And the reason we're going, actually, you know what? First, I'm sorry. Scratch that. Sorry. We're going to do the fence first. And the reason I say that is because we need for the fence to dry first. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it kind of splotchy, just like we started to kind of do the grass. So what I mean is, so we're going to come here and we're going to be using like a light brown, a little bit of brown. And as you can see, I left space in this one. I left the white of the paper so that because I knew and pre-planned that I was going to have a leaf here and a leaf here. So you can leave splotches. I don't have any over here or here. And with these, I actually went back in and drew on them. So using the colored pencil. But you want to pre-plan where your greenery is going to go when it comes to the fence. So it doesn't have to be in the same spots as mine are, but you want to kind of pre-plan that. So we're going to start off with our brown. And so I have some brown over here, and I'm going to wet it so that it's a little lighter. And so what I'm going to do, um, sometimes I like to add a little bit of orange to my brown, but I'm going to pre-plan. So I'm going to skip spaces, and this should be kind of like just a very light kind of wash on some of these. I'm going to leave a little bit of white space on each of my my fence posts here. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of orange to the color as I get a little closer to the right side of my page. You're probably wondering why. Just because I wanted to have a little bit different, um, sort of different color in some of the wood. And I thought, well, over to the right, maybe the sun is shining on the left, and so things would be lighter, and then things would be a little darker on the right side. That was my thinking. So again, these are just like washes of watercolor. And then we go back later and use our colored pencil. Um, we can make parts that are a little bit darker, like the top part of the fence here might be a little bit darker. So you can go back in with a little more brown. So now it really looks like a broken fence. And we're going to mix up another green when you're ready. So we have like the lime green, we've got regular green, and now we're going to mix up using our regular green. We're going to use green and brown. So you're going to kind of get this sort of muddy green. I'm going to show it like right here. So it's kind of a darker green. I call it muddy green because it's got the brown in it. And I'm going to make a bit of that. It's really olive green, I guess. Now that I'm looking at it, it's kind of olive green. Yeah. So that's again brown and irregular green. And so now we're gonna first make sort of vines over here, or like kind of curvy, sort of first curvy grasses over here on the left side. And then we're gonna come up here and we're gonna add this one that's kind of poking out like that, going to the top. And then if you want, you can kind of make some more of those. Just kind of random across the top of the fence. And we're going to come back and we're going to add some more greenish to everything. Meaning we're now going to take that green, so that same kind of olive green, and we're going to start adding a little bit at the bottom of the fence here on the fence. And you're probably thinking, why is that? Because this is going to be sort of the background for our greenery. So wherever you add some of this color, we're going to go also again in the middle here. And I'm going to kind of move mine up the fence a little bit so that now the fence is kind of greenish, has like a greenish cast, and that's okay because that's going to be where we go back and draw some greenery in. So it gives it the impression that there's more greenery than what we're drawing. We just draw kind of a few lines. And so now we're going to come back here all along the back, and we're going to fill in spots of this green. So I kind of go in like circles or almost like leaf shapes. And so I'm sort of adding leaf shapes to the sky right above as I go across. And then I'm going to start kind of filling in more either grasses or spots using this green. So right here, I like to kind of leave some space in between. I'm kind of doing almost like circles because it kind of goes down. The color goes down into like this section later on. So we're moving from left to right across our page. And we're going to fill in the space again with the green in between these two posts. And we're going to kind of cover over um, the last piece of fence here with a little bit of the green, like that. So it's going to look a little strange, all these colors of green. But we're going to start adding this to our grass, working in layers. So we should still have the olive green on our brush here. And we're going to come over here and we're just in the back here. We're just going to give it a little bit of some olive green here on the left side. Again, on top of the yellow. So we're just making this part a little bit darker. And then also on the left side underneath the boot, there's a little bit of a shadow. So going in between the crevices here, and then on the left here a little bit of a shadow. And then we'll do the same around the left side of the other boot. And we're going to let that dry. And we're going to move to the first layer of our boot, or both boots actually. So we're gonna let that first layer dry and wash off our brush because we're now gonna get it into yellow and tiny bit of orange so that we have a little more of a golden colored boot. So here's where if you decide you want to do another color, you can. But you would do a lighter color first, and then it would get, a little darker. But so what we're gonna do, so I'm adding in the kind of yellowy orange, and I'm gonna go again in sections, leaving the white of the paper a little bit because that's um, kind of like the brightness, like the sun getting on there. But I'm going to go down the left side of the boot and I get a little bit lighter for now as I'm going down. So if you can see the white of the paper, I'm going to show this up close just so you can see. So I have my darks. It's not real dark yet, but kind of everything to the left side. And then we're going to have it a little more to the right side as well of the boot. But first, we need to go into our shoe area or foot area. We fill in that part. And then we go up the right side of the boot. We're also going to add a little bit of greenish yellow, or the lime green, I should say, a little bit on the left side of the boot. Just very slightly. That was a little bit dark for my taste, so I'm just going to remove some of it with some water and blend it in with the color that's already on there since it's wet. So I just want to add a little bit on the left side to give it some variety and to deepen up the yellow. And then I like to go a little bit in the middle of the boot and add some more water to the golden yellow to make it even lighter and just to fill in a little bit more of the boot. And that's our first layer of that boot. And we're going to go to the other boot and do the first layer on that one. So what we do is we work in layers. We wait for one layer to dry sometimes, and then that's how we can add a second or third layer. So we need to mix up some more orange and yellow to get your golden yellow for the second boot. And we're going to go on the left side, a little bit, darker, going down the left side of the boot to the heel, but we want there to be some white space, excuse me, some white space. So basically, I'm just going to show this quick. So we come here and we color that in. You can see that there's a white space there. That's the white of the paper. Same with this section. And then we've got some white spaces here as well, including, around the toe portion of the boot. but we're starting off here. So we're doing the lighter color. We haven't hit it yet with more of an orangey brown color. That's going to be next. But this is our sort of main color. And you can get, it gets a little bit lighter as it goes toward the center of the boot. So leaving space of the paper makes it look like that there's still some light areas of the boot, and it gives it kind of proper form. So we're actually going to now go into our brown because we're going to do two things with the brown. We're going to add them to the boots, and then we're going to go and add some mud, right? Some mud and dirt on the bottom area over here. So let's get into our brown. And I like to mix a little bit of brown and orange so that we have kind of like a burnt orange. So we put this here. So again, brown and some orange. And you're kind of going to get like a kind of like a burnt sienna, sort of like a burnt orange. And that's going to look like this. So that's our shadow color for the boots. We are going to go back in with colored pencil. But this is kind of our dark shadowing for the boots. And so we're going to go on the toe area. And if you want to get a little bit darker, you can then just add straight brown. So I'm doing that in this section here. But I want to make sure to, take some water and blend it in a little bit so that it's not such a harsh kind of line. Oops. I add a little bit too much water here, so I'm going to remove it. And then I'm going to go up the right side of the boot. Now I'm adding a little bit of brown, just a tiny bit, and then smoothing it into the yellow that's already there. So the water's like our, kind of like our blender. So I'm adding in like the orangey brown, the one that's a little bit lighter than the brown. And so maybe right around where the crinkles are. And then at some point, I'm going to outline using brown the front part of the boot that's going up against sort of the kind of cleat area. So that's right here. Make it a little bit darker. So that's brown. Now I'm using it with the point of my watercolor brush. And then I also like to accentuate the the crinkle in the toe area or foot area. So I also then like to go in and now start kind of accentuating the outside of the boot using the brown. And so what I do is go in and kind of now start to outline the whole boot. And I'm using sometimes I use the brown and then other times I go a little lighter and use the brownish orange. Just kind of depends. On the outside, I do brown for sure. But, we're going to go back in with our colored pencil too and do a little bit more of an outline. Do kind of a splotch of brown over here on the right of the boot, and then also where the toe is on the right. We're going to go into the next boot and do the same thing using the orange and brown. We're going to add some shading to the left side of the boot. Especially going into where the heel is. Sort of along the left side of the foot area and up to the toe area. A little bit of shading there. And then I like to go back in using brown to now outline the boot. Again, just using the point of the brush and just very lightly outlining. We also make the bottom part of the cleats brown. And then along the underside of the toe, I make that a little bit brown too, and fill in just a little bit of the cleats just to kind of give it um, a little bit of, but not too much detail. But then we're going back and still outlining the rest of the boot. I forgot the labels here at the top. So remember, we're also going to use the brown now for our dirt. And so, put my camera here. And so what we're going to do when we start off on the left side, we're going to make some sort of brown splotches of maybe some grasses. And we're going to go across the bottom. Basically, we're going to go all across this bottom portion. And we're going to make spots of it a little bit darker. And kind of like there's, either some dirt or, move my camera again. And let me move my light now because I think it's reflecting off of, there we go. It was kind of making this part shiny. So I'm going to kind of make a splotch of dirt here. And then you can start to make, add some water and start to kind of make a bottom part where it's a little bit lighter, but you're kind of pushing out sort of the frame in a sense. And then I like to add a little bit of green to some of my dirt too. And we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to grab our brown colored pencil while that's drying. So we're grabbing our brown colored pencil, and we're going to go in for some of the details in the fence. And so what I mean by that is we're going to make it look like a fence. Like we're going to be adding, first of all, we're going to be sort of outlining the fence again using our brown. But then at the top of each fence, we make like almost like cuts like it's broken, right? Like that. And then we're going to make the grain of the wood. So sometimes we're going to go straight. Other times maybe we'll add a little bit of sort of a kind of like an oval shape, to be similar to basically the wood. So we'll start off here, and you may have to press down quite a bit, depending if your watercolor is still wet, you might not be able to get a kind of a pencil line. But I like to start off and kind of outline each fence first. And then sometimes you can kind of color in a little bit if you are, if you want to make part of it darker, just like you would if you were just using plain colored pencils. So once you outline, this is where you can then go back in and you make it look like lines. So remember the two white spots that we left on this fence? I just realized I accidentally went over it in my brown pencil. You don't want to do that. We're going to add leaves there. So skip on over that part. Sorry. Now, any part where you left white, obviously don't put in the sort of the wood grain, but fill in each of the wood posts, making it look like wood grain. And so sometimes, you might want to go a little bit darker. Other times, skip a little space. And then again, other times make a little more of like a kind of an oval, sort of like a knot, I think they call that, right? A knot in the wood. Favorite are the rings in the around the trees. Like when there's a tree near us that unfortunately had fallen down few years ago in one of the storms, and so they had to cut it down and level it. And so the tree stump is still there, but you can see all the rings. And I think if I remember correctly from school, right, you can count the rings and figure out how old the tree is. I think I have to go back and I have to Google that or chat GPT it. But every time I pass it, like my husband Chris and I go for a nightly walk, and I always look at that stump and I think, I need to find out how old that tree is or how old it was. Okay, so now that you have done that, what you can also do, you can double check your boots to make sure that they are dry. And you can also go over them using your brown pencil. Mine is still a little bit wet, so I'll have to wait for some of the details. But basically now kind of outlining and doing a little bit of some shading on the boot using the colored pencils. So I'm going to show that up close. So right on top of the watercolor, and it gives it this nice shaded effect. And so I like to go into the darker areas and kind of shade on top of the watercolor. You can go a little bit outside the boot too, because it just gives it some texture. And you're going to do that to both boots. And also outlining, like truly outlining using this pencil as well. So you can outline like the outer parts that we did. We're going to go in with black afterward on the bottom parts of the boot. I like to go in on the design. Outline that. And a little under the labels. You can add some orange too. I think I forgot orange. Forgot to mention orange colored pencil. I just realized there's some orange in some of this too. So if you have an orange colored pencil nearby, you can also grab that. And I just added a little bit of orange colored pencil to the boots as well. Sorry about that. Here's my orange. And I just kind of color a little bit in spots to give it a little bit of pop on the boots. So again, I kind of go into the darker areas, and then sometimes I just add a little bit of orange color. Mostly, around the areas for it to be a little darker. And when you're ready, you can take your black colored pencil and outline the, cleat part of your boots. And then I like to just very lightly kind of shade those in using the black pencil. So again, when you're ready, you can pick up your black colored pencil. And that's really the only time we use our black colored pencil, except for some of the flowers on the right side. We use it for the middle of the flowers. Our next step is we're going to grab our green colored pencil. And we're going to start drawing in and coloring in some of the grasses and the leaves. So I'm going to show this up close because I want to show you where I did that. So here on the left, I drew outlines of green grass. And then later on, you can go back in and add, some green to it using the watercolor. Over here, I added more grass lines. And also, if you can see, grass lines here and kind of odd shapes that look a little bit resemble leaves, as well as what I started to do here on top of some of the green globby stuff you see. We're going to add that on later. And then I started drawing the leaves over here. So here's a leaf here. Remember, I left some space open, some leaves here. And so I've done that all throughout and started sort of toward the middle of the drawing here, adding in colored pencil. So making shapes like leaves, grasses, stems, Here I concentrated and added more grasses. And then over here, kind of started to make leaves and kind of bunches of oval shapes that resemble leaves. And then up here too. So this is one of our finishing touches here. So again, I'm going to start drawing in some grasses here. And so, if for whatever reason, sometimes if your watercolor isn't completely dry, it's hard to kind of go on top of it. But you want to start adding some grassy stuff behind the boot and on top of the the fences. You can add a long stem with, green leaves. This is where you could also use your brown if you wanted to. And I'm going to go back over on the left to create more stem kind of situation, but I wanted to kind of go along the grass here and along the fence at first. So again, this is kind of very free, right? There's no wrong to this. You can draw leaves. You can also start to draw some of the stems of the flowers here on the right where we left it white. And then I'm going to go back to the left side here and again start to draw um, sort of some leaves coming off of the big stem here. So all those sort of green sort of lines that we drew, you can start to make leaves on them. And, you can also add leaves without even adding the outline, as splotches. And then I kind of started making my own, I don't know what this thing is here. It's like kind of a clover, but then I don't know what it did. I was just playing. And I make 3 sets of leaves, which I believe is poison ivy. Yeah. So I don't know what I was thinking. I was just thinking 3 leaves. And then later on, I looked at it and I thought, I think I drew poison ivy. I drew a bunch of poison ivy, which kind of might make sense if the grass back here is kind of, you know, not mowed and it's kind of crazy. So maybe that would be fitting. But you can draw in as many leaves as you want. And then you can go back and start adding kind of clumps of regular green and that lemon green. Very concentrated kind of an application. And you can even go in the white space above where you kind of started to create the leaves because it'll look like that there's, more leaves there. You can also go on top of the grass and kind of make, dots. I like to add a little bit of yellow back here at the top. So you see how even just the splotches make it look like that there's more grasses and things. So you have this kind of combination of the watercolor and then also the colored pencil. And our last part is then drawing, if you want, some flowers on the right side where we left it, the white space here. I go back in and I first just do a circle in the center, and then I create using red. I just create the petals. Sometimes I make them petals. Sometimes I kind of make it like just a surrounding color, almost like, I guess, poppies. I add kind of a little bit of red on the other side, like here, um, without any kind of leaf or stem or anything. Kind of just looks like, foliage or whatever. Sometimes I go back in and I make more stems coming from the flowers or more leaves. But that's our mixed media garden boots. And we make sure we didn't miss any other steps. No, we did not. You can wait for some more of the leaves to dry and, go back in and maybe make some veins if you wanted to. I didn't do that in mine, but I'm just saying if you wanted to, you could. You can add more flowers if you want, but I would love to see what these look like. I'm going to add my email in the chat if anybody wants to email me and send me a picture. I also have a newsletter. Oh my gosh, Sydney, that's lovely. Let me stop the recording.